The first thing that I absolutely hate about this car is the paint. The Ford paint that came on it is absolutely just terrible. Like, just check out some of these scratches and whatnot. Like, for real, it's bad. If you look at that back bumper, it's pretty terrible. The back bumper's probably the worst spot. That's even before the collisions and whatnot. It's an old car, so you have to give it some slack, but either way, the Ford paint is not very good. My friend Jake also has a truck that has Ford paint on it that is peeling away the same way mine is, so that Ford paint doesn't last super long, so that's number one. The second thing that I absolutely cannot stand on this freaking car is this radio. The main reason why, there's no CD player. Yes, it is an old car, but CDs were around at the time, so it would have been kind of nice to throw in a CD player. Thank goodness for modern modifications. One of the only modifications I can do to this car is the old tape into the aux cord, and I can play from my phone. But even with the tape to the aux cord, it's not always the clearest connection, so sometimes the sound will be different on each speaker, and it's not from the sound system, it's from the actual stereo. So it would be nice to have a CD player and an aux cord. Obviously you can buy aftermarket ones, but on this car it would be super expensive because of the shape of it is round. And so that's the second thing, is I really do not like the stereo at all. The third thing I absolutely cannot stand about this flippin' car is the interior. The color is terrible. It's like this brown color that you see now, and the worst part about it is that the cleaning behind it is awful. Every little spot shows up on it, and even if you do clean it properly, certain parts of it will discolor and it changes colors on you. Like, for example, on this door, as you can see, it is like 3 different tones of gray and 3 different tones of brown, and it's just awful. And the speckledness of it and the seat color and the tan, I just cannot take it. As you can see right now, there's some black that shows up that will never come off because it's stained that way, and you can't get it off no matter how much detailer you use. But that is number 3. I hate the interior. The fourth thing that I absolutely cannot stand on this car is how hard it is to find aftermarket parts for it. Nobody makes parts for this car. I have one modification that is like a legit modification done to it, and it was customized by a good friend of mine who's a mechanic, Greg Hines. But other than that, you can't mod this car, and that's terrible, especially if you're a car enthusiast like I am. I love cars and I want to make it faster, but I physically cannot make it faster. That's number 4. The fifth thing I hate about my car is that it is slow. The horsepower is low. Yes, low and slow. Sometimes low and slow can be a good thing, like in cars, but in this case, it's awful. Stock coming right around at 145 horsepower to anywhere to 200, and the readings, you cannot get a factory accurate estimate of what the actual horsepower is on these things, so you would have to go get it tuned, or dynoed, I mean. And nobody wants to spend that kind of money going to get it dynoed unless their car is actually making like a significant awesome amount of horsepower, or it's a really fast car. But low horsepower kind of stinks a lot. And yeah, that's about it for that one. The next thing that I cannot stand on this car is how many accidents and crap it has gone through. To start off, one of the worst ones that I cannot stand is because this happened in the school parking lot. Nobody reported it. It looks to be like it got hit by a trailer hitch here or something else, but this was indented about 3 or 4 inches under this taillight, and when it was indented, it was just awful, and it ended up ripping this whole front bumper off right here, right behind the taillight, front light, behind the front headlight, and which ended up detaching the whole entire bumper over here, and that was all from one incident. I popped it out, but it took a long time to get out, and a lot of elbow grease and whatnot. The next accident that was awful, and I was super mad about it, one of my neighbors, I think, did it. Right here, you can see that it got hit by what looks to be a handlebar on a bike. That was also not reported, and no one told me what it was. That's annoying because this whole fender would be super expensive to replace nowadays, because it's a full all along the car, all the way to about down here. The next collision is gonna be the one that I was involved in. I got hit. This was about 6 months ago, and I got hit right here. This was also indented as well. I did pop it back out. Luckily it came out. You can tell it also scratched up all of the paint and also causing more cracking to the paint. I lost one of my reflector lights as well, and that was rough. 2 more accidents. The next one, I don't want to call her out on this name by name, but one of my sisters did run into a bush, which ruins this even more. That was probably that was one of the first accidents this car ever was in, was this bush accident right here, and you can see that it's starting to take a wear on the car, more paint cracking as you can see, and that was the bush that she hit. And for the last accident, completely my fault. Luckily we have the stripes to cover it up, and at this point it's so damaged you can't really tell anymore. But I did rear end somebody. I was traveling a little too close, got a little too distracted, red light. He slammed on his brakes way too fast. It was really unnecessary. He had a whole car length in front of him. But anyways, besides the point, another accident. Luckily, I didn't hit him hard enough to where the Ferrari badge stayed on. The rust on this car is kind of really bad. As you can see down here, we have some rust forming. There's literally a hole right here that is covered up by a black sticker that I covered up because it was just so ugly I couldn't look at it anymore. But on these fenders, on really all the fenders on this car, there's a bunch of rust. The fenders aren't doing so hot, and then the other part of the rust on this car is up top on the roof. Here you can see more rust right here. There's rust spots all over the roof of this car. That also goes along with the paint that you heard about earlier. But even here, we're covering some of it up with these stripes. So these stripes are cool and fun. I do love them on this car, but they also are covering up a lot of stuff. That's about it for the rust factor. I hate the rust on here, but it is an older car, so that is expected. All of these, it's an older car, it's expected. The last thing I absolutely cannot stand is how faulty this stupid door is. Every time I have somebody coming in the car, they try to open it, and you can't open it unless you really pull. But it's such a pain because people are always trying to figure it out and figure out how to open this door. And lastly, I want to end this video with some daily advice with Dave, going old school. And down the street, one of the neighbors kind of gave us a reminder to be persistent and kind of whatever you do, and do what you want to do and do what you love. So be persistent. Daily advice with Dave. Peace out, Chump fam. Have a great rest of your day.